What is this Bitcoin price action? One moment we're consolidating in the range, altcoins are picking up, and then Bitcoin gets a little bit of a fake out and altcoins struggle. In today's video, we'll be talking about what just happened and how I'm navigating this market. We'll also be going over some of the most important news in the industry because there's some very, very positive news for Ethereum. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Let's jump right into the video. As per usual, let's kick off the video taking a look at the Bitcoin chart. So what you can see here is we still have the CME gap, which is below 115.5 to 114.5K. Now, only time will tell if we will actually tap into these levels. But right now, you can see that within this range, Bitcoin really is protecting the point of control. Now, the point of control is the middle of this range, which has the most volume. What I mean by this is if you go on the 4-hour time frame, you can see that we've had several wicks now tapping into this level and holding it as support, which is ultimately very, very positive, suggesting that Bitcoin wants to go ahead and move higher. Every single time that we wicked below, we ended up bouncing above. And so, ultimately, I'm looking at Bitcoin moving higher, and I am in a Bitcoin long position, which I shared within my free Telegram community. By the way, if you want access to all of my own personal trades, you have the first link in my description down below, bringing you to my free Telegram community. I also have a free premium group that you can join where you can really see how I'm navigating this market. But anyways, to the Bitcoin chart here, what I really want you to pay attention to is this area of liquidity, because if we break above here and we tap into this area of liquidity as we did before and come back lower again, it will not bode over well for altcoins. When we were looking at this market here, we noticed that in this range, after Bitcoin made the all-time high of 123K, altcoins did indeed show some relief, and we kept on chopping around and altcoins showed relief. However, the moment that we had this fake out over here, let me just erase a couple of drawings just so you get the better picture. The moment we had this breakout over here, everyone thought that it was time for Bitcoin to move much, much higher. However, this fake out is also what caused altcoins to struggle on the lower time frames against Bitcoin once more, and of course, contributing to Bitcoin dominance so far this week, going up, bouncing from the crucial level of 60%. Now, if we take a look at the chart here, when we came back down here and we started consolidating again, right now as I'm recording this video, there is still a little bit of relief for altcoins. However, I want you to pay attention to this potential move and coming down. And if we fail this breakout again, what this would mean is we can then start talking about potentially coming and tagging the low around $116,000, which we've tapped into several times. If this fails to hold and we come back down here, at that point, this is where I would start adding more to my Bitcoin longs aggressively at this CME gap, anticipating another move higher. My base case is still higher. However, this range has been very, very tricky to navigate. Bitcoin has the fake out and altcoins struggle. Bitcoin consolidates and altcoins can finally breathe again. But as I discussed in my previous video, we do not want to have altcoin season right now. Why? Because if Bitcoin has a significant breakout from here and consolidates higher, that would give us a way better environment for altcoins. I'm talking about a real altcoin season where we can see that Bitcoin dominance drops as it did in the previous cycle, a solid 20% over the course of 4 to 6 weeks. That is what we call an altcoin season. Altcoins really outperforming Bitcoin as Bitcoin distributes. Now, right now, in my opinion, best case scenario is that Bitcoin goes ahead and breaks out from here, taking charge of the market, Bitcoin dominance goes up, and altcoins struggle against Bitcoin. They're fine on their USD valuation, but then Bitcoin ends up distributing at much, much higher levels, potentially up here above $135,000. No one really knows, but as we distribute here, that is when altcoins finally get the true altcoin season that so many people are calling for. But right now, based on the data that I have available to me, I still don't think that altcoins are the way to go if you're a spot holder. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't some opportunities in the altcoin market. Of course there are. However, I think that what we could be seeing is something like this, where we had a flush in Bitcoin dominance only to go ahead and move higher. I think there's a reasonable chance that we make our way back up towards these levels and getting a significant bounce from the 60% level, which you can see on the weekly time frame we are currently getting. So let's see how it plays out. ultimately, best case scenario for the altcoins, we end up moving a little bit lower against Bitcoin because the lower that altcoins are valued against Bitcoin, the higher they can potentially bounce. And we saw in the previous cycle, we went quite high. So if we can get down here and then get a significant bounce, man, oh man, will that be an incredible altcoin season. Now, taking a look at ETH against Bitcoin, you can see that this week we did get a tiny bit of a pullback here. Now, I am talking about a potential trade setup within my Telegram community if you want to join, but it should be a very, very interesting trade because if Ethereum does end up moving a little bit lower against Bitcoin and we form a higher bottom, I don't think we're going to go all the way down here, for example, then it could add for another spring for us to move a lot higher. And while I don't think that Ethereum against Bitcoin will reach the heights of last cycle, I still think that there is a lot of upside. And so swapping Bitcoin to Ethereum even at these levels, if you're a long-term spot holder, is not the worst idea in the world. I don't think we're going to make it all the way up here to below 0.09, but it wouldn't surprise me if we make it to at least 0.07. And at that point, Ethereum would have been outperforming Bitcoin for quite some time. So if you're not a trader, don't worry about it. Right now, though, my spot portfolio is mainly Bitcoin, but of course, as I discussed previously, I started to add a lot more Ethereum. Now, what is next? ETH is still at these very, very high levels after taking a breather from hitting right around 3.9K. We dropped to right around 3.5K, and now we are seeing that we could potentially spring off once more. It all depends on what Bitcoin does from here, because if Bitcoin goes ahead and moves back down into this range, which you can see we're struggling once more, then maybe Ethereum will be moving lower and it will give us a better opportunity, a better entry to add more Ethereum to our portfolio. So what I'm seeing right now, to sum it up, Bitcoin dominance is getting a pretty nice bounce. And I want you to keep paying attention to this because if you're a spot holder, I would have the majority of my portfolio still in Bitcoin. That might sound crazy, but I know that some of you watching the channel may have a little bit more capital than others. And the point of this channel is to try to attract people that are serious investors too. And so if you do have more capital and you want to sleep stress-free, in my opinion, not financial advice, of course, if you want exposure to the altcoin market, you dive a little bit into Ethereum. However, if you just want exposure to the overall crypto market, I still think that Bitcoin is the way to go. Only time will tell, but as we've always discussed on the channel, Bitcoin gives you the upside while minimizing your downside risk. Will there be shit coins that outperform Bitcoin? Of course, there always are. But if you're a more calm investor, you want a stress-free life, this is what I would recommend. Not financial advice, of course. I'm just telling you exactly what I am doing with my own capital. Now, what we can see here is that if Ethereum does go ahead and break above the 4K level, which I'm very, very interested in, I think that it will confirm that all-time highs are imminent. And my target for this cycle is somewhere between $6,000 to $7,000 per Ethereum. That would be absolutely epic. I would likely start taking some profits around 5K. And if we get all the way up to 7K, that would be phenomenal. Now, I know a lot of people are calling for 10, 20, 30K ETH. And if we get there, trust me, I would be happy, but I will start taking some profits on my ETH position right around 5K. And before we get into the news of this video, let's just touch on USDT dominance. I really like looking at this metric. You can see that we did actually break below the trend line, which is the most bullish case scenario for USDT dominance. If I go on the daily time frame so we get a bit of a closer look, it seems like we are now back testing this support line, which has been in place since all the way back in 2017. So what is going to happen here? Are we going to go ahead and move a lot lower, which is ultimately very, very positive for the crypto market, which would also coincide with a potential Bitcoin breakout? Or is this just going to go and pop off and then Bitcoin is going to have a correction leading to further corrections in the altcoin market? Right now, the key level that I want you to pay attention to if we are to move lower here is the 4% level, because we can see that back in 2024 to early 2025, we came below this level, but we ended up bouncing right back up. So keep your eyes on this level for USDT dominance because it tells us where the crypto market is headed. Next thing I wanted to show you in terms of news, market dips 5% after going up 80%. Crypto Twitter, freak the fuck out and panic sell everything right now. It's fucking over. Now, a lot of people with altcoins do have this kind of behavior. This is why I always recommend having the majority of your portfolio in Bitcoin. And if you want exposure to the altcoin market, have some ETH. We're seeing so many people freak out. You know, when Bitcoin on the lower time frames went ahead and dropped back into this range and targeted the point of control, a lot of people were freaking out saying it was over. Now we pop back up, and as I check my timeline, everyone is euphoric. Just stay cool, calm, collected in this market, and you will likely have more success than many others. Next thing I wanted to show you here is MicroStrategy plans to raise $2 billion for Bitcoin purchases, upsizing from $500 million. So they just keep on raising more and more money to buy more and more Bitcoin. He is trying to buy all of the Bitcoin. Michael Saylor, that is. Next thing I wanted to show you, which is extremely interesting, especially for ETH. BlackRock iShares Ethereum ETH ETF and Ether becomes third fastest ETF to hit $10 billion in assets. This is absolutely insane, and it's showing us that institutions keep on accumulating Ethereum. And as you can see, the price action would suggest this as well. And that sums up today's quick video. Try not to get shaken out by some small movements in the price of Bitcoin. If you're a spot holder, don't stress out. My base case is still that Bitcoin will be breaking out whether or not we tag that CME gap. I told you my plan. If we go into the CME gap, I will likely be adding to my Bitcoin long position. However, if we break up from here, I am more than prepared. I also think that in whatever direction we break out, Bitcoin dominance will likely continue to increase after getting that bounce from the 60% level. Let's see how it develops. Ultimately, I still don't think that altcoin season is here, but the good news is if we break up higher and Bitcoin starts consolidating at much, much higher valuations, then at that point, the altcoin season that we would potentially be getting would be a much more exciting one. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.